The best weekend of football is here. Welcome, football fans and gridiron gamblers, to your NFL best bets of divisional round. I'm Mitch, and these are my best bets for each divisional round game this weekend. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly NFL best bets all postseason long. There's only 4 games this weekend. My favorite weekend of the NFL season. The 8 best teams in the league. Some of the best quarterbacks in the league. Some of the best coaches in the league. And of course, some of the best bets of the season. But how I want to break this down is giving you my favorite spread or total for each of the 4 games. And I will include a favorite prop for each game. Gronk, spike that like button. Let me know in the comments your favorite bet of each divisional round game. We're going to go in order of game. Let's begin with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. I'm going to be honest, it was tough to choose between the under and the Texans. I personally think that most of the bets in this game will be played with the Kansas City Chiefs in a teaser. I think a Chiefs teaser down to 2.5, maybe even below 2, will probably be the most common bet and probably have the most money involved. Most people believe the Chiefs will win this game. And by getting them below a field goal, it's good value. Typically, one of the 1 seeds doesn't cover. That has been a trend over the years. And out of the 2 1 seeds, as you'll see with the Lions, I think the Chiefs will still win, but I don't think they'll cover. The total is at 41.5, and it's a little bit too low for my liking, although I would lean under 41.5. My score projection is 23-16 for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I do barely see it going under. But one stat that does favor the Houston Texans is that the Chiefs have failed to cover a spread when favored by 7.5 points or more this season. They've had 6 opportunities in the season of 2024 to cover 7.5 points, and they have not done it once. The spread when they played the Texans at home the first time was nowhere near 8.5. So that being said, you're getting better value on the second matchup where the Texans are healthier defensively. Azeez Al-Shaair will return. Fatou Kazi is also back in the lineup at D tackle, which helps in 2 ways. He is a big run stuffer, which is going to help their run defense and their front rotation, especially on early downs where the Chiefs, they like to be efficient on those early downs. Get a 3 or 4 yard run, get a 3 or 4 yard pass, set themselves up for a 3rd down and 2. They like to get to a lot of 3rd downs, but they like it to be manageable, right? They want to avoid 3rd and longs, especially against the Texans pass rush, which is part of the reason I like the Texans, right? The Texans have a very good pass rush, and a formula for an upset in the NFL in the playoffs is a pass rush. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are 2 of the best edge rushers in football. This is arguably the best edge rush combination in the league. And they're taking on a team that their biggest weakness is their tackle position, right? Like Joe Thuney is playing guard and shifting to left tackle. He's having to fix their problem at left tackle, which is making them weaker on the inside. That's maybe where Danico Autry or Mario Edwards could find some success inside. But that's exactly the point. Like, the Chiefs are having to play a left guard all-pro at left tackle because they've had such issues at left tackle. Right tackle Jawan Taylor's constantly false starting and in the backfield, but he's also a bit inconsistent as well. And Will Anderson has been great lately. He played phenomenal against the Chargers. Azeez Al-Shaair returning does help the Texans in a variety of ways. First, he's physical and he's fast. So he is going to be able to make up space on those yak plays that the Chiefs love so much, and he's going to be able to tackle and ensure that the Chiefs do not get a lot of yards on those crossing routes, and Mahomes doesn't scramble as effectively because he might get his head taken off like Trevor Lawrence, or the run game won't be as effective. Having Azeez, Christian Harris, and Henry Oto'o, that is a dangerous group of linebackers, a fast group of linebackers that all can tackle, all can run, and all can cover. So I really like the Texans linebackers in this type of matchup where there's going to be a lot of horizontal passing, a lot of screens. So the Texans should be able to corral that nature of the Chiefs' game plan. The Texans also have two great corners, Lassiter and Stingley. Stingley, I think, can match Worthy one-on-one, speed for speed, man-to-man. Stingley is a better player than Worthy, but Worthy has become the number one guy for the Chiefs offense in the screen game, in the trickeration, in the crossing routes, in the vertical dimension. So Stingley taking him out would be effective. Lassiter having the size to match DeAndre Hopkins is also enticing. The one guy I worry about here is potentially Hollywood Brown if he gets going, but I could see Stingley matching him as well, potentially on certain plays. Travis Kelce in the playoffs is a different type of factor, but the Texans have not been bad against tight ends all year, and thanks to their linebacker play and their scheme. I don't think the Chiefs will be able to run the ball all that effectively on the Texans. Texans' run defense is superior to the Chiefs' run offense. I think it will be a lot of quick passes. So it's going to come down to, can the Texans be physical? Can they throw those receivers off their routes? Can they buy some time for their pass rush? Can they get to Mahomes and just slow them down a little bit? Be good in the red zone, be good on third down, because that's where the Chiefs make or break in this game. On the other side, I don't see like a favorable way the Texans go about attacking the Chiefs. That's why I still think the Chiefs will win. I think it will be a lower scoring game, and that's why I lean under. Like, I only have them projected for about 16 points, but you're getting 8.5 here, and the trend suggests take the underdog against the Chiefs when they're favored by this many points. But what I like about the Texans is I like Nico Collins. I like Joe Mixon. I think the left side of their offensive line, now that they put Howard next to Tunzel, definitely helps their protection for CJ Stroud. And I definitely think that Stroud, in these big games, he's always found a way to elevate, right? Last week against the Chargers, last year against the Browns at home, Ohio State against Georgia. There's just moments where CJ Stroud is able to elevate his game, make big playmaking moments, escape sacks, throw the ball down the field, and make incredible scrambles. He knows how to play in these games. He might not be efficient in this game against a good Chiefs defense, but I think he'll be explosive, and I think he'll realize the moment that he's an underdog and he needs to go out there and ball out. So I could see him making some big plays in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if Dalton Schultz also had an effective game, as the Chiefs have been one of the worst teams at defending tight ends this year. And I just feel like in a second matchup, D'Amico Ryans, Bobby Slowick, and this entire Texan staff and team will be more prepared to go to Kansas City. Joe Mixon also being a calming presence that's played against the Chiefs in these moments before should also help from a leadership standpoint. I think the Texans will hang around. And I wouldn't be shocked if they only lost by like a field goal or less, because their defense really is that good at times. The Texans defense has had some of the most impressive performances of the season, holding Josh Allen, the Lions, and dominating the Chargers. They could be the best unit in the league. So I could see them stifling Mahomes and making life difficult, and the Chiefs having to really be forced to win a defensive battle. So I'll take the points in a game with such a low total. The prop of the game, I like Mahomes going over his rushing attempts. This is actually even money, over 4.5. Now, Mahomes has achieved this number, over 4.5, 4 out of his last 5 postseason games. He typically runs a lot more in these settings, including in the Super Bowl where he had 9 rushes against the 49ers. That's a defense that is similar to D'Amico Ryans, of course, because D'Amico is a former 49er coordinator, and they still run a similar type of scheme. So last game when they played the Texans, Mahomes also ran quite a bit. Even with a bad foot, he ran 5 times. Remember that storyline where apparently he was injured, which everyone knew he wasn't, but he had 5 carries in that game. He had 9 carries in the Super Bowl, and in last playoffs, he had 6 or more carries in each game. So Mahomes runs a lot in the playoffs. So expect him on third down, expect him on early downs just to gain a few yards, to avoid a sack from Hunter or Anderson. With the pass rush being so nasty, he's going to have to escape and have to find pass rushing lanes and, rushing lanes in general to find some extra yards to keep the offense on pace, because that's what the Chiefs are all about. But on top of that, the Texans don't contain. They're an aggressive downhill pin your ears back style, which leads to more lanes opening for quarterbacks to run. So I like Mahomes here to go over 4.5 attempts. Moving to the second matchup, I like the Lions to cover the number at 9.5. I considered the over, but it's just such a ginormous number at 55.5 that it makes me uncomfortable. I like the Lions at home, though. My projected score is 38-24 for the Lions. I think they'll win and cover and win by about double digits. I do think that the Commanders have an offense that can score on the Lions because Jayden Daniels is dynamic. I think he'll run the ball a lot on early downs to keep the success rate on early down successful. And I do feel like third down, fourth down, the Commanders have been otherworldly this season. They've been like the best team on third down, the best team on fourth down in the NFL this season, which makes an upset viable. But at the same time, I just don't see any avenue for how the Commanders slow down the Lions offense. The Lions have had an extra week to prepare, an extra week to rest offensive and defensively. They've had an extra week to watch the tape and know how to defend Jayden Daniels, see what the Bucs did, who are a blitz-heavy team. The Lions are a blitz-heavy team in a different sort of facet. And what I like about the Lions in comparison to the Bucs is I think they'll be more aggressive in coverage. Typically, when you play man coverage against the Commanders, Jayden Daniels' numbers have dropped because other than Terry McLaurin, there's not a lot of weapons that consistently separate and beat man coverage for the Commanders. Like Zacchaeus, Ertz, these guys are not exactly Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. These guys are not separating from man coverage all that much. So a lot more falls on Jayden Daniels to extend plays, to scramble, to make things happen with his legs. And I just feel like eventually Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Zadarius Smith, these guys are going to get him. These guys are going to bring him down, and they're going to get some stops, especially if it's high leverage where it's like a lot of fourth downs. There's potential for this game to get out of hand if the Lions are consistently moving the ball at will, which I think they will, because the Commanders' style of defense does not exactly match up well with the Lions. They play a lot of man, and they also like to blitz, similarly to the Lions. But that has not been a kryptonite for Jared Goff. He's been number one against man coverage this season. The Lions offense has been number one against man coverage this season. The team that played the most man coverage this year, Jacksonville, they allowed 50 points to the Detroit Lions, okay? The Lions will move the ball through the air at will. And on top of that, the Commanders are not a good run defense either. They allowed the third most yards before contact. They allowed in the bottom three in terms of yards per carry allowed as well. So they're a bad run defense. I think they're like 26th in rush EPA allowed. So they're just all across the board, a bad run defense. They're going to have to pack the box in order to stop it, which is going to lead to explosives from Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and the passing game, especially against man. Like I said, Goff might have a 300-yard day if they overcompensate for Jahmyr Gibbs. I do think Gibbs is going to have a great game, though, as a receiver against a hobbled Bobby Wagner. The Commanders overall have a slow middle of the field and linebacker position with the old man Wagner and the more defensive blitzing end linebacker hybrid Frankie Louvu. So Gibbs could have a good day. Sam Laporta could be a mismatch as well in the middle of the field. And Amon-Ra is going to be playing Noah Iguodala, whatever his name is, Noah I. He is not a good matchup for Amon-Ra either, as he's probably one of the worst overall slot corners in football, in my opinion. So I look across the board and I just feel like the Lions will run it. The Lions will throw it against man coverage. Goff will have time because the Commanders don't have a great pass rush. They're going to have to blitz to get pressure, which is going to lead to explosives. I think the Lions are going to get whatever they want, and they're going to be aggressive, which means they're going to be able to pull away. If they get one stop early, like, they're going to be able to pull away. Like, the Commanders, they're going to have to possess the ball. They're going to have to go on long drives. But eventually, given the Lions' style of play, where they're super aggressive and they try to create negatives and they try to blitz, Daniels has been worse against the blitz. You know, he likes to take a lot of sacks. If they get behind the sticks, it's going to be a tough one for the Commanders to really reach, you know, a one-score game. The Lions have just proven that they can consistently cover the number, and I'm going to back them in a big spot here. Now, the prop that I like is Jahmyr Gibbs going over his rushing yards. I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best running backs in football, and I think that he's going to prove it in this game. Even with David Montgomery potentially returning for this game, which I believe he will be, I don't think he'll see a lot of the ball and a lot of carries, because I think Gibbs will be such a dimension to the receiving department, especially against a lot of man coverage, where he's going to just body Bobby Wagner consistently on routes and option routes. Wouldn't be surprised if he caught a touchdown in this game. I feel like they're going to want to keep him on the field as much as possible for the explosive element of the ground game. I think Montgomery will serve more as the backup here. I think Gibbs will rush for nearly 100 plus yards. He's done that in 3 straight games as the Lions' lead tailback without David Montgomery. He's had 5 out of the last 7 go over 84.5 rushing yards this season. And I just think Gibbs is that electric, that good, whether it be in the second half when they're trying to pull away and put the game away. I think Gibbs will be involved. Whether it's early trying to get the lead, I think he'll be involved. So overall, I just trust the dynamic nature of Gibbs, where he could hit a home run for like 60 yards and you're almost there. Like, he's just that good. I'll take Gibbs to have a 100-yard rushing day in this game. The next matchup is the Eagles and the Rams. I couldn't really choose between Eagles spread or the total being under 44. So I basically said, hey, why not give them both? I like both. First of all, I like the under because the weather could be pretty negative for passing the football. And whenever passing the football is a negative, well, that's less points. Running the football, milking the clock, that equals less points in a game. The Eagles love to run the ball. They love to go on long, deliberate, and running drives, right? Like, Saquon's going to get 20, 25, 30 carries in this game, especially if it's raining or snowing. They're not going to trust Jaylen Herz to throw over 20 times in this game. Stafford has proven that he's not the same quarterback in the cold throughout his career. He doesn't have a good record. I think he's 1-8 out of 9 games at a certain temperature, and that will be in this game. Secondly, Matthew Stafford this season has not been as effective in the rain, if it does rain, right? We saw him against the Jets. We saw him against the Niners, some pretty ugly football games. Those defenses also did similar things to what the Eagles do. A lot of 4-man rush, a lot of zone coverage, right? A lot of cover 4. And that's exactly what Fangio does. Vic Fangio is the master of the cover 4, the cover 6. He loves those match coverages where they're able to match on those crossers and things like that. And his secondary is, I think, going to stifle Cooper Kupp. I think they're going to slow down Puka Nacua. And I think life's going to be difficult for Stafford to find separation down the field. I think it's going to have to be a lot of low checkdowns to his tight ends and his running backs. I think that they're going to force Stafford to be patient. And I just feel like overall in bad weather, Stafford's going to be a little bit less accurate, a little bit less on time. The Eagles have a great 4-man rush, especially from the inside with Jalen Carter and Milton Williams. Williams had 2 sacks last time. Jalen Carter was heavily double-teamed, and that's why Williams went off. Nolan Smith looks great right now. Josh Sweat's had a good year. I think the Eagles can get a lot of interior pressure, which forces Stafford off his spot, makes him bounce around, and makes him uncomfortable. Third down was also really difficult for the Rams because of this fact, because the pass rush of the Eagles dominated. The Eagles, I also think, will dominate the line of scrimmage on the other side. I think Saquon will be able to run the ball. I think Hurts, the reason I like, if it's snowing, the correlation between Eagles covering and the under is there, in my opinion, because I think it helps the Eagles defense defend the pass. They're already solid against the run. I'm not too worried about Kyron Williams going off here. On the other side, I think Jalen Hurts is the rushing threat. So Jalen Hurts will be able to take off and add another dimension to the Eagles offense that the Rams offense doesn't have. So I project a 24-17 type of game, maybe like a 24-14 for Philadelphia, but I think 6 is a little too low. I think 7 or 7.5 should be the number here in this game. The Eagles obliterated the Rams in the first matchup in LA on primetime. It was 37-20 final. It was 37-14 at one point. Saquon had 255 yards. I think that the Rams are just going to struggle because they won't win the line of scrimmage on either side. Eagles will get pressure on Stafford, making life uncomfortable in the passing game. The weather could be a factor as well, which the Eagles are more equipped to play in because of Saquon and Jalen Hurts. Then on the other side, I think the Eagles will protect well. The Rams have a good pass rush, but I don't see it just penetrating the Eagles' offensive line, which might be the best in the league consistently, which it didn't in the first game. A.J. Brown might be a problem. Devontae Smith is available for this game, trying to find the Eagles' postseason record for receiving yards in this game as well. So I think the Eagles are just a far more talented team. I think they will control the line of scrimmage, which the Rams were able to control against the Vikings, allowing them to win. And given the style that the Vikings played, a blitz-heavy, happy style, the Eagles play the opposite defensively. So I think it's an under. I think it's Eagles. I think even if it's an under, the Eagles can still cover, because I think their defense will be the reason why they do cover. I don't necessarily think they're going to score 30 in this game, because I don't think the weather is going to allow them to. I don't think that they're going to throw all that much. And I personally believe that the Rams defense has gotten a little bit better. And I do think that Shula will have some tricks up his sleeve for third down and things like that, where he'll be able to maybe throw Hertz off on a few possessions, kind of like what we saw with the Packers. Okay, so I like the Eagles here. I like the under. Very similar game to Green Bay, where the Eagles didn't look great, but they still covered pretty convincingly. Okay. The prop for this game is going to be Jaylen Herz under 25.5 pass attempts. I'd jump on this right now, because if it is snowing or it is raining, there's less intention for the Eagles to actually pass the ball, right? They're not going to want to throw the ball. They're going to run it 30 times with Saquon Barkley, maybe even a little Kenneth Gainwell. Hertz could run it himself 10 times. If it's snowing, there's going to be a heavy emphasis on the ground. They're going to be able to run it 3 or 4 plays in a row and get a first down. So they're not too worried about throwing the ball here. So I would go under 25.5. Hertz has actually gone under this number 9 out of the last 11 games. So it is kind of too high, in my opinion, at minus 105. So the bad weather, and combined with the trends of under in 9 of his last 11, I would take the under 25.5. And the final game, the game of the week, the game of the year, the 2 MVPs, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, the 2 guys that are the favorite. I like the Bills to win this game. I think it is the Bills' year. I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl, and I have a strong feeling that this is their season to win. I think the fact that they're healthy for once does matter. And I think the reason the Ravens were able to beat down the Bills in week 4 was because the Ravens were healthier and the Bills were not. And I think that was a more, crucial game for the Ravens at that point in the year, being a 1-2 football team. And the Bills did not have their middle of the field defense, which is so huge for Sean McDermott's scheme. Not only his zone coverage, but also his run defense. Having his linebackers, Bernard and Milano, to cover the middle, to defend the run. Having Teron Johnson, one of the best nickel defenders in football. When Milano is on the field, the Bills allow 1 whole yard per carry less than they do when he's not on the field. When he's not on the field, they allow 5.1 yards per carry. When he is on the field, they allow 4.1 yards per carry. It's a huge difference. When, Teron Johnson's on the field, they allow a 0.6 less than they do when he's not on the field. So it's a big difference having those guys on the field. I think McDermott also has the fact that he has a curveball up his sleeve. He has the opportunity for a little bit of redemption through his game plan. I think more blitzing. I think packing the box. I think more base defense. I think things like that will be able to throw the Ravens off just enough. The cold weather being a plus for Josh Allen, wind being a plus for Josh Allen because he has an extremely strong arm compared to Lamar Jackson, where Lamar might struggle a little bit more in that weather. His hands are smaller, things like that, okay? The cold, he's not quite used to it being a Florida boy despite playing in Baltimore. He's not quite Buffalo weather ready, right? Josh is the big athlete, right? Lamar's a little bit skinnier, right? So things come in handy here for Buffalo. I think they've learned so much playing in these type of conditions. They've been so dominant in these type of conditions lately especially this year, but lately especially. So I think the Bills will be better against the run defensively. I think they'll have a better game plan for the Ravens offense. I think Zay Flowers is probably not going to play, which is really going to hurt their passing game and their explosiveness downfield, which will allow the Bills to cheat and play more aggressive coverages. And I think the Bills will be able to throw the ball on the Ravens, which is going to lead us to our prop. But I could see Josh Allen having 300 yards. I could see Josh Allen having a huge day through the air because he's got Ty Johnson and James Cook as running back mismatches. He's got Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox as tight end mismatches against kind of suspect middle of the field coverage at linebacker for the Ravens. They don't have Pat Queen this year, right? Like that second linebacker is a bit of a weakness. Roquan's also been worse against the pass this year than typical. And those perimeter corners can be picked on, especially Brandon Stevens. I could see Coleman or Cooper having a pretty big day here. I think Josh just finds overall more passing success against the Ravens than Lamar does, which leads to more consistency. I think a lot of quick passes and then the occasional explosive will be there for Josh Allen. Not on, don't forget about Josh Allen's legs as well. So The Bills money line, I think this is their time. I think this is their year, and I think they get redemption from week 4. Now, the prop is going to help us win this game, which is Amari Cooper over 21.5 receiving yards. One of the players that didn't play in week 4 was Amari Cooper. He wasn't on the team yet. I think this is a big reason they got him, because against the Ravens last time they played a lot of man in that game, if I recall correctly. They tried to test those Bills receivers, and Khalil Shakir got injured, which definitely hurt them. Now, I think Amari Cooper is a guy that they got to beat man. Like, he's a guy that separates. He's a guy that gets open. He's a guy that wins through route running, right? And I think Cooper will route Brandon Stevens up. I think he could have a big day, especially on the 3rd down, and especially down the field. So I think he could go over this on one catch. Like, he could have like a 35-yard catch in the first quarter, and you're already laughing to the bank. So I think Amari Cooper will catch a few big passes in this game on 3rd down, and I think he will go over 21.5 in this game. Brandon Stevens is one of the weaknesses that you can attack in this secondary. So those are my best bets for divisional round weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, Gronk spike the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your bets. Good luck, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It's Mitch. Deuces.